Welcome to the Making a Multi-Million-Dollar Med Spa podcast, where we dive into the art and science of building a thriving med spa. I'm your host, Kat Taranto. In this podcast, we're all about empowering medical professionals and entrepreneurs like you with the knowledge, tools, and inspiration needed to elevate your practice to new heights. Whether you're just starting your journey or you're a seasoned expert looking to expand, this is the place where the industry's brightest minds come together to share their secrets to success. So sit back, relax, and get ready to unlock the potential of your med spa with the Making a Multi-Million-Dollar Med Spa podcast. Let's go on this journey together, one success story at a time. Hey listeners, we are excited to bring this episode on injectables this week. This session was recorded as an introduction conversation before our virtual immersion seminar, but we loved the content so much we knew we had to bring it to the podcast. Listen in on this chat between Matt Taranto, founder and managing partner of Aesthetic Care Med Spa, and Noreen Bollinger, who's a leading injector and injectables trainer for Allergan, Galderma, Revance, and Mint Aesthetics across the nation. They'll discuss the intricacies of the injectables business, how to leverage your expertise and boost your revenue. Let's get into the episode.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Noreen is very good at this. I'm extremely nervous. I just, speaking in public kills. Yeah. Hey, this is going to be fun. So I'm very excited to be able to pull some amazing information on Noreen. So just talk a little bit about Noreen. We've known each other for a lot of years. She worked here in Kansas City as an injector for a couple of places that actually we compete with. Got to know her because she's a trainer, and eventually she came over to the good team.
Yeah.
And she is literally known in the country as one of the best injectors there is, and we're very fortunate to have her. So what we're going to do this morning for about the next 30, 45 minutes is just talk about the business of injectables. And, you know, one of the things that we see in all the consulting we do is we see a lot of clinics that they kind of start in that with the injectables as the way to get in, and then technology and stuff. But we really want to focus on how you make them work together. But Noreen, as you've seen on the courses, on the e-courses that she's done, and I know she's doing today, is developed an amazing skill, especially with dermal fillers. And so when I look at injectors around the country, the vast majority are heavy on the neurotoxins and light on the fillers. And I think, and just let me know, that's because fillers are a little bit harder, maybe a little bit scarier. Would you say that?
I would say you have to plant the seed for the person to bring them on board with it. And so people never come in asking for a chin or a jawline or temples. You have to tell them why they need it. Neurotoxins, they see lines and wrinkles every time they raise their eyebrows. They look in the mirror, they make expressions, they see it. But filler's different because you're not just filling a line, you're actually contouring the face and making it look more youthful. So that's really hard to set up a plan and to have the patient buy into a plan that's expensive. Mm-hmm. I think that's the biggest reason.
So I always like to use good examples. Noreen is 87 years old and she looks pretty good. She has 1 cc of filler in? No, a little more. But let's get to know you a little bit. So what made you want to do this? What made you want to become an injector? What was your attraction to this industry?
Actually, it fell into my lap. When I first started, I didn't even really understand what Botox did. I was 33 and I teach fitness classes too. And one of the gals in my fitness class was a rep, and she said, why don't you be an injector? And I'm like, what does that mean?
And you were a nurse at this time.
I was a nurse, mm-hmm. and I worked in pediatrics. And she was like, you know, with you teaching, being up in front of people, she was like, you'd be so good. So I said, okay, you know, if a job comes along that they don't need experience because I don't know anything about it, let me know. And she called me the next day, and I went in and applied, and I was so nervous for the whole first year I injected. I would stress out the whole night before if I had a filler patient. I had very little training, and they just threw me out there. And to be honest, the whole first year I did it, I wanted to quit. I mean, every time I'd come home, I'd be like, oh my gosh, this is too hard. I'm not perfect. I'm very perfectionistic. And so I didn't feel like I was in control. And I always tell injectors, it takes about 1.5 years till you actually can assess a face and be like, okay, I get it. I get what I'm doing. I'm not just filling a line or putting cheek filler right on the bone. I'm assessing the face, giving them a plan. And it's about a year and a half, 2 years in where it clicks. And so I tell people all the time, if you are really nervous when you start, you're probably going to be really good. If you're not, and you just think I'm just putting this gel, blobbing this gel right in their face, you're probably going to have some issues. You're probably not taking the time. So it's normal to be nervous. I think it's actually better when people are really nervous than not nervous at all. I always tell people when they start, if you are shaky, that's okay. I looked like I had Parkinson's. I was so shaky when I first started because I was so afraid of an unnatural look, so afraid of anatomy, so afraid of occlusions. And that really gives you a really good basis for injecting safe and wanting to know. I wanted to know all the anatomy. I was so immersed in it, rather than I sometimes see people that it's like this, I'm just like, it's like doing your hair, putting makeup on. We are injecting a medical gel implant into the skin. And so you have to treat it like so. You have to be aseptic. And so when I first started, that's what I was the most scared about. And so once it started to click and I got my confidence, that's where I was like, oh my gosh, I love this. I don't want to do anything else. So it's very different now. Everybody wants to be in this space. I probably hear from nurses at least 20 times a week. How did you get into it? I'm like, well, I kind of got into it before it became big on social media. Mm-hmm. And so now it's like a thing. And so it's really hard to give advice because it fell into my lap. I don't know that I would have ever pursued it, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. I don't know that I would have went down that road. Now I feel like this is what I was meant to do. And so that's really, that's kind of how I started. And now I love it. And I still love that same rep that kind of opened the door for me. And thank God, because I'd probably look 100 if not.
Well, it's amazing. I'm glad you brought that up because, with Mint, we've worked with over 2,000 clinics. And the biggest thing I see in all areas is so many people are undertrained. And I work with clinics that, I went to a weekend course on neurotoxin fillers and I'm ready to go. And so talk a little bit about, because you work with, you're a trainer. So Noreen teaches for Allergan, for Galderma, for Revance all over. Actually, she's being flown to Barcelona, Spain for a big conference. So she's really known as being a wonderful injector. But what do you tell people as far as, because the thing that I always preach is you got to train a lot. Mm-hmm. And I believe hands-on training is the best, right?
Absolutely.
Where you actually are injecting. And so many of the injectable trainers, you go to, or trainings, you go to a class, you watch, and you get to inject like one half of one face, and that's
exactly
it. So talk about when you talk to maybe new injectors about that process from starting from beginning to becoming a good injector. It's a lot of training, isn't it?
It's a lot of training and it's a lot of treating. So, the biggest thing when I first started, I went to a couple courses. I put my hands on one patient. I had no clue what I was doing. The injector that was the trainer, is trying to kind of bebop between 8 injectors, and then there's 20 people watching. And it was such a letdown. I left feeling like I kind of learned nothing. I had exposure, but I really didn't learn. It didn't make me feel like I was more confident. What I love about Mint, and I talk about this all the time, with Mint, you spend a day with us. So we have a nurse practitioner, we've got nurse trainers, but you spend a day assessing every face of the patient. You do a didactic, and then you get your hands on every single area. So if it's a basic training, we are treating cheeks, nasolabial folds, marionettes, and lips. If it's an advanced training, we'll pull in some cannula, we'll do jawline, we'll do chin, we'll do temples, things that I can't do at a Revance or an Allergan or Galderma because they're off label.
Yeah.
But probably 75%, probably about 50% of things we do are off label. How we use the product, where it's actually FDA indicated. And so that's what people really want to learn. They want to learn the other. When I train with, Revance, Allergan, Galderma, I'm training completely on label. And so I have restrictions. I can't answer certain things because it's not FDA approved, even though I do it in my practice. And it's a small, short time. It's a 4-hour window where we're really highlighting 1 or 2 products that the clients really want to learn about. But with Mint, you're spending a whole day and you're getting what we really do in practice every single day. And I can get so in depth with things that I can't do. And so that's why I feel like training is so important. In our area, there's some injectors that have been injecting 25 years and they do the exact same thing they did 25 years ago. When I started just 10 years ago, I inject completely different. 10 years ago, everybody put filler in their nasolabial folds. It wasn't until really Voluma was launched that we really started looking at the contour of the face, giving more of the high lift in the cheeks rather than just filling lines and wrinkles around the mouth.
Because when you lift the cheeks, you lift that
looks
nasolabial
better.
fold as well. Yes.
Yeah, so you're changing the highlight of where the shadowing is on the face. And so it was really Dr. DeMaio, and he launched Voluma, where he really started to look at filler as more of a contouring agent rather than filling a line. And so if you're still doing what you did 10 years ago, you're so behind the ball. And that's what I see. I can almost predict when people come in and it's the first time I see them, I can almost predict where they've been before. You know, they're like, oh, I've had filler before. And I can almost say, oh, because the certain person, not that they're not great injectors, but they do the same thing they've done for years and years and years. And it's evolved so much, even with the Mint e-courses. I was saying so much has evolved from the time we filmed back in 2016 or 17 to now that, you know, I've talked to Kat, I'm like, we need to kind of, because we do things differently. It just evolves so much. We have new products out, like the whole Revance line is out now. And they're different. I use them differently than I do Allergan and Galderma products. I use Allergan and Galderma products differently than I did 10 years ago. So it's such an evolution. And if you don't stay up on the most current, you're behind.
Yeah. And, you know, the one thing that I always teach with my staff and the clinics I work with is, you know, I've been doing this for 27 years. I still learn new things about laser. I was a laser trainer for years because, like you said, protocols change. People find out new techniques that are better. But I don't care if you're a beginning injector or an advanced injector, never stop looking for training opportunities. And one thing that I think a lot of people say, well, there's not good training out there. And I agree, it's difficult to find good training. Obviously, that's something we do. But listen, in your geographic area, in fact, I just had a clinic in Florida I was talking to, and they're looking, I just want to get some more training. How can I find it in my area? And listen, I believe the best trainers are not people who have been taught to train. They're people like you who are actual injectors, do a ton of it, and then they teach, right? And so I said, listen, get with your rep, find out somebody who maybe is not a direct competitor. So this person was in Fort Lauderdale. I said, go to Orlando, go to Fort Myers or something. Say, talk to your rep, find out who's the very best injector, and then personally reach out to them. And I bet you money, the majority of the time, and I do this with lasers a lot, on maybe a weekend or something, if you pay them enough money, they will work with you and learn from people who just do a ton of it. Noreen, you know, one thing about Noreen, and I look at numbers of our injectors a lot, she's very unique. And when I look at numbers from injectors all over the country, the majority are very heavy in neurotoxin. Noreen is unique in that she's 55% filler, 45% neurotoxin, which is very rare. A lot has to do with your passion. But one of the things you're so good at, I'm blowing a lot of wind up her head right now is going like this, is the multiple syringes. Because the average number of syringes nationwide in a filler appointment is only about 1.5 to 1.75. Okay. And it's a lot of it is the fear of asking for money, but you have so much talent at getting people to fill to true correction. So talk about that skill and how the confidence or you're not scared about the dollar figure, because so much it's scary saying, well, this would be $3,000, $4,000, $5,000. How do you do that?
Well, I'm never selling a syringe, and I'm selling a result. And so if they're coming to me with certain concerns, I am selling what I can do to make them look better, addressing those concerns and their overall face shape. And so if somebody comes in and they don't like their nasolabial folds, where I'm not going to go straight to that area, we've got to do a little bit in your cheeks, we've got to do a little bit on your piriform, and I need 3 syringes. If you don't want to do 3 syringes, that's fine. If you can only afford 1, I just say, you know what, let's just wait. Let's wait. You save up some money, because if I do 1 and split it between 3 areas, you aren't going to be happy.
You're not going to be happy. Yeah.
And so I just talk to them, and I'm using my own before and afters that people have signed photo consents. This person had 5 syringes. They look amazing. They don't look overdone. You would never know they had 5 syringes. When people see that, it's very, very impactful. So building your own portfolio, anytime you're using models to, play with new products, make them sign a photo consent, because that's where you really sell it. Like, this is why this person looks great. They had 5 syringes. Yeah, it was expensive, but they're going to keep that for a year. And that's always starting with your baseline. That's going to be the most you're going to spend. So say today we're going to do 5 syringes. In 10 months, we're going to do 2 syringes. We're going to keep you to your new baseline. We have your pictures. We're always going to look back at those and see where you're at. And so many times, Just had a client yesterday. We haven't done her lips for like 2.5 years. Her lips still look amazing. And so we were just looking at her face shape. Yes, her cheeks definitely need some. Her under eyes need some, but her lips look great. And so I'm looking back at those, how they're aging. And many times they're keeping some of that filler where you're not treating that same amount every time. So I always tell them that first time we're getting to your new baseline, and then we're just keeping you there. So it's going to be most expensive, and then it'll go down from there.
If you're looking for a management and marketing training for your med spa, head to Kansas City with Mint Aesthetics. Join us on May 7th and 8th for an immersive 2-day hands-on training session led by the management team of a $14 million med spa thriving for over 20 years. Discover the processes that propelled our success and learn how to adapt them to your business. This collaborative environment provides a unique opportunity to share successes, ask growth-oriented questions, and gain insights from our own missteps. Engage with Aesthetic Care owner Matt Taranto on company culture and customer service. Dive into the marketing strategies behind our annual open house, our biggest revenue-generating event of the year. Even talk with our clinic manager about the intricacies of hiring and training for the highest level of customer service. Our entire management and marketing team will be at your disposal for a comprehensive exchange of ideas, insights, and effective initiatives for your clinic. Don't miss out. Use the link in our show notes to learn more about this event or secure your spot today. Do you know an outstanding med spa, doctor, manager, provider, or groundbreaking treatment that is reshaping the industry? Nominate them for Mint's Clinics to Watch. We are so excited to launch this initiative to recognize the true leaders in our industry. Our aim is to spotlight those leading the way to excellence, providing valuable insights for others to pave their path to success. Check out our website for past winners of the Clinics to Watch. You can also nominate someone at the link in our show notes. Share your nominations and be part of celebrating the industry leaders. Let's inspire and build success together.
Well, and it's, there's an old saying in retail, don't sell out of your own pocketbook. And for me, I grew up in a family with no money. When I think about asking somebody for $3,000, $4,000, in my mind, it's a lot. But my belief is, and I think what you're saying is, always offer the best result. So that's where you start. This is going to give you the absolute best result, and then work off of that. And I think what you said is so important for especially newer injectors. If somebody wants all this stuff done, but they want it done with one syringe, you're setting yourself up for failure. You're going to have a client or a patient who's not going to be happy.
Right.
And the one thing that I preach, and Noreen just takes us to another level, is the photography. Getting their picture right before you inject them, right after you inject them, because sometimes that's when it looks the very best. They haven't swelled,
Right.
And showing them the difference. And Noreen has a library of people that has had 2 syringes, 3 syringes, 4 syringes, 5, 6. I have a very good friend from Spain. He's an interventional radiologist over there, and he comes over and visits all the time. And Noreen I remember she told me before I saw him, she goes, I did 7 syringes. I'm thinking, oh my God, he's going to look freakish. He looked so natural and so good. It was ridiculous. So we have a saying here, the best injectable is the least detectable.
Right.
Because we want a natural look. Now, another thing I want to talk about just about the business of aesthetics is pricing. One thing I see too often with so many clinics is they feel the only way people are going to come to them for especially neurotoxins is to be cheap. Okay, nobody's going to do it if we don't do $10 a unit. We have people in Kansas City offering $9 a unit.
It's crazy.
What you want to do is build the reputation. Okay, think about this. If this woman is about to stick needles in my face and change the way I look, am I so worried about how cheap she is or how good she is? And so the best way to grow your injectable business is by being amazing. And the worst way is by being cheap.
Right.
We are Kansas City. The average price of a neurotoxin in Kansas City is $11.50 a unit. That's the average. We're 14. Okay. 14 for Kansas City is very high. I just worked with a clinic in New York and there's 16. And I'm thinking, that's not high for New York. But for Kansas City, that's high. And we're the #1 injector of neurotoxins in 4 states. I mean, we're very busy. And that's something that when you talk to somebody you haven't treated before, how do you credential yourself to give them confidence that, hey, we may not be the cheapest, but I want to tell you about myself. How do you credential yourself to help them build confidence that they should trust you?
I think the best way is not bragging on yourself, but kind of.
In a modest way.
In a modest way, the experience you have, how many people you've treated. And really, I think before and after so well.
Yes.
And just really talking about your successes, especially if somebody's really nervous, and you get to a point where your referrals kind of sell it for you. And so I have so many referrals now. I saw your friend Susie, or what have you, she sent me in. She looks amazing. I want to do that. So you get to a point where you don't even really have to sell yourself anymore because all your clients sell you every single day. People look at you, oh my God, do you have your lips done? You look so natural. And so I think building that reputation in your geographical area is so important. And then treating them like gold. If somebody leaves, I have a client I just treated Wednesday, and she's kind of freaking out about her cheeks, and she's never had filler there. And so I'm going to reach out to her. I've already emailed with her. I'm going to say, hey, come in. I'm actually going to go up north to her other location and just see her today because she's nervous. And for some people, they've never had it before. They're more anxious, and really making sure they feel like your number one client, even if they don't spend the most with you, even if you only see them twice a year, making them feel like they're so important to you. And so you get some clients that are a little different, very anxious. And sometimes you want to pull your hair out at the end of the day, like, oh my gosh, it's swelling, but really making them not feel that way because at the end of the day, they're still bringing money into your clinic. Yeah. So being available, following up with every single client, I think that goes so far beyond even selling yourself because they know you've held their hand. They're always going to come back to you.
Yeah, I think it's a good point because, one thing that I think happens with people like us who have been in the industry a long time is, I'm not saying we get jaded, but like Botox is nothing special for us. I mean, I've been around Botox for 27 years. I don't get up in the morning and think, oh my God, Botox, because it's just what we do. But the person who's getting ready to spend $500 with you on a neurotoxin appointment, it is a big deal to them. So we need to make it special for them every time. Now, let's talk about something that you have to understand is there's going to be complications. It's going to happen. I don't care if you're the world's best injector, you're going to have things that don't go well. I had a really good talk with a surgeon once, and she was a client of ours, and she said, listen, in surgery, I'm not perfect, right? I'm a human being and things are going to go sometimes wrong. So when you do have a complication, which are going to happen, how do you handle it?
So I am really, I try to be right out of the gate on top of it. So if I'm doing a high risk area, if I'm doing temples, if I'm putting filler in the forehead, glabellar lines, nose, those people have my phone number. They can text me. I don't care if it's 2:00 in the morning. I tell them the risks, vision risks. I tell them necrosis, all of that. I tell them the signs to look for. Those areas that are more of your high risk areas, I don't do those on people. I have that feeling that they're a little bit different, a little bit crazy. But they have my number so they can get a hold of me. It's not that if you're going to have a complication, everybody's going to have a complication at some point in their career. It's how you respond to that.
Exactly.
And if you respond well, everybody's okay. If you don't, and the people, it happens on a Friday, you inject them on a Friday and they can't get a hold of you till Monday, that's a big problem. Even areas that aren't high risk areas, every single person I say the best way to get a hold of me is my email. People are much less likely to email you than text you. So if it's something they're just worried about swelling, they can still email me. It goes straight to my phone. Now, I try to be really good about if it's not something urgent, I get back to them on Monday. But if it's somebody I need a handhold, I get back to them. The other thing is if somebody comes in, like this client I just had, I was doing her under her whole infraorbital hollow. Well, I always do a little bit in the cheek first. And we kind of talked about it. She now feels like she has too much in her cheeks and she's very, very worried. So in that case, I'm going to go up and see her before it's been 2 weeks, because if not, she is going to stress for the entire 2 weeks. So I'm just going to go up and I'm going to give her options face to face and say, hey, I can Hylenexus, I can take it out. I will put a syringe on your account. So you're not out that money. Not a big deal. We can always get those syringes from our reps, but I take care of it. If it's somebody that comes in and has a lump or a bump in their lip, if they have those very crepey lips, you see them back for their follow-up and you're like, man, they just don't look smooth and I have to do a little Hylenex. That's fine. I'm going to get a syringe from the rep and then I'm going to re-put some back in. So, this is a lot of money to people. I mean, I look at it, Would I spend $3,000 on filler if I was in this industry? I'm pretty cheap. I don't know if I would.
Oh, you
Um,
would. I know.
Yeah,
it.
I just think, and everybody's budget's different.
Yeah.
So money is a big deal. So I never want somebody to feel like, hey, you did that filler, now you took a little bit of it out because there was a lump or bump. They think when you do a tiny bit of Hylenex for a bump, you've dissolved their whole lip. I'm going to put that back in. We can get a free syringe from the rep. And, talking to your reps and having that really good relationship is important. But you have to be on top of those. My biggest thing, do not avoid responding to them because it's a pain in the butt.
Exactly.
Because I get people, one of the gals I teach fitness classes with, I call it the emergency. She had a place inject her under eyes. She did not need it. And she calls me on a Sunday and says, can you help me? Freaking out. She had a speaking engagement on Monday in front of hundreds of people. And this injector told her on Friday she wouldn't have any bruising in her tear trough with the needle. And I was like, why would you tell somebody that? Yeah. So I went up on
never promise somebody you won't bruise.
No,
period.
No. And around the eyes, if you're using needle. So of course I went up on a Sunday. I did Hylenex, dissolved it. And we just had this talk and I'm like, that should have never happened. So she now has put money for her end of summer party on her account. She was like, okay, Noreen, I have to make the switch because this is the second time it's happened. She was going to a friend, trying to support her business. And she was like, okay. And I was like, well, honey, you learned your lesson. But I always say, in a nice way, I will always help anybody. But I think you get to learn that customer service is such a big piece.
Well, it's huge. We get, we're fortunate enough that we have some really good injectors here at Aesthetic Care, and we get a lot of fix-its, a lot of people who come in. I went somewhere, and listen, you guys, I tell people who aren't in this industry, if you're going to go have this done, obviously we would love your business. But if you don't come here, credential them. Make sure it's not somebody who's been doing this for 3 months and had 1 day of training and stuff. It's just,
and that happens.
No, it's everywhere. But what Noreen said is so important, not just with injectables and everything. So Aesthetic Care has been open for 22 years, and knock on marble. We've never even had a letter for a lawyer. It doesn't mean we've been perfect, but every time we have a complication, I don't care if it's a laser, with ultrasound, with injectables, we jump on it. We smother them with care.
Right.
Do not run from it. I've had people say, oh my God, I think I overtreated her with that laser. I hope she doesn't call. No, you should call. You should be jumping on. People want to know that they matter. People want to know that you care about their overall well-being. And most people will not sue somebody who they really like.
Right.
Okay. So that is something that we just preach here. Listen, we are human beings. We are not perfect. We will make a mistake, but we will never run from our mistakes. Mm-hmm. Now, another thing I want to talk about, and I'm not quite sure how much more time we have, is the importance of looking at somebody. There's an old saying, if all I have is a hammer, the whole world's a nail. And so for those people who are injectors or laser operators, but they don't do both, they may just gravitate to, all I'm going to do to you is injectables. How do you talk to your clients about the importance of looking at the skin as a whole? That, hey, the injectables are working underneath, but what about the wrapping paper? Because you're very good. Noreen also performs laser services, but she's so busy with injectables, she can't do a lot. So she has some of our other staff do that. But talk about how you talk about, hey, let's look at the whole package, not just 1 or 2 things.
That is so important. So many times when I'm giving somebody a consultation, I want them to get their halo first, or if they hate their perioral lines and they are so deep, I want them to go see Meredith or Judy for profractional microlaser peel, some type of deep resurfacing. And I talk to them about options, halo, less downtime, not as aggressive. If you can do the downtime, do it. I mean, just yesterday, I ran and grabbed a Meredith and I said, hey, this gal's from out of town. She drives in from Springfield. Could you tell her how much it would be? Because her cheek skin is beautiful. She hates this. No matter how much filler I put there, no matter how much Botox or Dysport, Daxify I put there, she's going to be slightly happy. But I always think I want to try to give them as close to 100% satisfaction and happiness with what they've spent. And in my head, I think, would I be happy with that? Would I be happy if I spent $3,000 in filler, but I'm still seeing all this texture here? And so for me, I think I probably wouldn't. So I told this client yesterday, I said, I want you to go see Meredith. I want her to do a really, really aggressive treatment around here, almost shave down some of those lines and wrinkles. Then I want you to come back and then we're going to do filler. And you'll love it. Because if I did filler before she had any of that, she would be like, yeah, it looks better, but it's not awesome. So I'm talking about everything. When I am doing a consult, If they have a lot of reds, I'm like, we have got to get your rosacea under control. So if you have all these broken blood vessels in your cheeks and then I do cheek filler, it's almost going to highlight those vessels. So I actually prefer laser treatments before halo, perfractional, micro laser peel, RF microneedling, and then to come back for filler. I also talk a lot about Sculptra. Sculptra is one of my favorites because it doesn't just give volume in areas, it also conditions the skin, makes the dermis thicker, helps with fine lines and wrinkles, helps with texture. I mean, I have some amazing before and afters. It is doing so much more. It's not a filler, it's a biostimulator, tricking your body almost into making more collagen, the type 1 really good collagen. It's that inflammatory response that makes your body create that collagen you keep for a long time. And so many times it's not just filler, it's Sculptra. I think everybody should have Sculptra. Now, whether it's in their budget, that's
Yes.
another thing. So a lot of times if they come in, I'll say, hey, let's get you some immediate results. I'm going to do 2 syringes of filler, and then we're going to come back and we're going to do your series of Sculptra. And those are the happiest people because that collagen that we lose so much over the years, from the time we're 18 and above, we lose 1% of collagen a year. I've lost a lot.
Most derms I talked to said after
Matt
the age
has
of
none.
30. That's true.
Our flagship training event is back for another year. Join Mint Aesthetics for our virtual immersion seminar on June 14th, September 6th, or December 6th, or all 3, for a day-long comprehensive training on BBL and Halo. We will cover an in-depth didactic with insights on settings, contraindications, post-care, and more. Plus, we will close out the day with hands-on combination treatment demonstrations. For only $5.99, you can get the best BBL Halo training for your entire team. You also have the option to pay with Cyton Success Builder points. Registration is now open for all dates, so book your spot now.
After the age of 30, you're virtually producing no collagen.
Right.
So
Sculptra is so important. And many times it's hard for people to get on board with Sculptra because it's not immediate.
right,
It's not like,
long term.
I did your cheeks. You have to get one person through that series and see a wow to get the buy-in. It was hard for me. I mean, I got trained on it, and for about 2 years, I was like, because I never really saw somebody with an amazing result. But now that I do, I'll show people, and I'm like, it is a marathon. It's not a race. But once you get there, your skin reflects light better, your pores look better, your radial cheek lines look better, and you have a little bit of volume. So I think putting all those in and making a plan, and people want you to lay it out with a timeline. Mm-hmm. So you're going to do your Halo in November. You're going to come back and see me in December. We're going to do some filler and neurotoxin. Then you're going to come back in January and we're going to start your series of Sculptra. We're going to just feed some BBL in there 2 to 3 times a year. And so if you can set them up with a plan, they're happy, they stay on task, and then they don't have to stress about it. Oh my gosh, I need an appointment. What do I do next? A client should never ask you, what do I need to do next? You should already have that plan set up for them and when they need to make their appointments.
Yeah, I think our goal here at Aesthetic Care is to always offer the best that we can do in all areas and then work off that. And I think a lot of people do it the other way. They start with the littlest thing and then they try to build. And so, listen, nobody says yes to a question you do not ask, okay? And I think a lot of times human nature would prejudge. Somebody comes in and in your mind you think, oh, they probably don't have a lot of money. I'm not going to recommend that. You have no idea. And even though maybe it'd be good, for us to be a financial counselor, that's not our job.
Right.
Our job is to, how can we give them the absolute best result? And then let them decide, hey, can I afford this or not? And so, we're very fortunate. A lot of clinics have a wonderful menu. We, in our clinic here, we do between 45 and 50% of all our revenue comes from injectables, and 50 to 55% comes from a lot of other lasers, radio frequency, ultrasound things. But the key to remember is the combination of them is best, because what Noreen does with, the neurotoxins, obviously relaxing muscle, filling, lifting, and sculpting the face, you throw in lasers that cause that thermal injury and get your fibroblast cells producing their own collagen on top of that, and you marry those, you're always going to have a happier person because your results are going to get better. So always think about a plan versus, so many consults are done. oh, I have these lines here, and you talk about the lines here, and talk about neurotoxins, you hope you treat them. Well, what Noreen and the really good providers are good at is looking at the whole face, saying, certainly we can do that, but let's talk about what else we can do. Present it to them. They don't need it. You don't have to say you need this, but here's what we're capable of. And really what you're doing is you're planting the seeds, you're stimulating the desire.
Mhm.
The other thing that I think is very important in a business, Noreen, if you look at her, she looks very natural. If you had to guess, what do you have right now? You've got some neurotoxins, you probably have some fillers going on. Using yourself, a personal testimonial, I do it. And then your staff. Noreen can look at staff and say, hey, look, well, here's what I did here. Or people walk in and they see our front desk and say, oh my God, they look so good. I think we should all be our best testimonials, don't you?
Right. Do not get overdone. Sometimes
No.
I train people, and I will say in a nice way, you will be the person that's slippery slope. It's right at your disposal. You can inject whatever you want. Don't inject yourself, because that's usually where I see people. They see, oh, I got one little line here, one little line here. I'll do Botox, Dysport, Daxify on myself. I will not do filler or sculpture on myself. You can't see when you look, everything's backwards, and you can't see that 180 degree. You can't see the right angle anyway. So don't do that, and be natural. That's the biggest thing I hear is, oh my gosh, you look normal. Yeah, I do it. I also do a halo every single year. I do 2 to 3 BBL and my skincare. And so when you tell people that, they're like, okay, if I do these things, I'm going to have great skin.
Like that, yeah.
I'm going to look natural. Don't ever get overdone. I'm telling you, I go to conferences for Allergan and Galderma. And sometimes I look around at these people and I think, holy hell, who is actually asking them to treat them? Because it's like there's so much lip filler and cheek filler, and they start to look almost alien-esque.
Like the cat lady of New York.
Yes,
Yeah.
and don't be that person. Now, I will say I see it more on the coast.
Mm-hmm.
But
Dallas.
you want to look natural. You want those people to be like, gosh, you look so good, but it doesn't look like you've had anything done. The other thing that I think that's important too is to be excited for the results. Like,
Mhm.
I get really excited when I show them a before and after. I am genuinely excited. Holy moly, look how great you look. Look at your cheeks. Look at those lines around your mouth. My excitement makes them excited. Even neurotoxin. I mean, I always do a follow-up before and after for a first time neurotoxin to me. And I look at their skin quality after. Not just the lines and wrinkles are better, the reflectivity of light is better. I always try to get them on a retinol, some vitamin C at that appointment. 2 weeks later, their skin looks amazing. And so that right there is testimony to, yes, I need those products. And their skin just looks amazing. It's glowing. So if you don't do those follow-up pictures, you're missing out that chance to get excited and get them excited about the results. They always want to keep their skin looking like that. But if you didn't pull them back for a follow-up, they're never going to know, because you kind of forget what you looked like when it's been 2 weeks and it's kicking in. Same thing with Sculptra. People never remember what they started out looking like. When you show them the beginning of their first Sculptra series, they're like, oh my God, I looked like that. Almost always they say that.
Mhm.
From their skin tone to texture to volume to their face shape, they are blown away. But it's such a slow process, they don't remember where they started. Same thing with lasers.
Yeah. Oh, no. And I tell people all the time, if I told you today, let's say it's summertime, go sit in the grass and watch it grow all day and then come back and tell me what you saw, you'd say, oh, it didn't grow. It did. Just happened so slow. So when we do a series of, let's say, BBL treatments, that might be over a period of 3 or 4 months. And we all look in the mirror every day, morning, night, fixing your hair, whatever it is. You're not going to see it. Okay.
Right.
Same like Sculptra is that, one great thing about dermal fillers is you do is kind of, you got,
It's it.
I always tell people, if a woman goes in for a breast aug, she knows something happened. In fact, most plastics tell you the first thing they do is look down. They see it. It's an instant thing. Filler. The filler is really the only thing we do in this industry. Sculptra, neurotoxins, lasers. That's why photography is so important.
So
I think miss the boat, because when I show somebody a picture before they did a series of, let's say for rosacea, 5 Forever Young BBLs, they never remember what they started. And when they see it, they're going, oh my God, that's what I look like.
Mhm.
It's really important. The one thing you said, and I want to touch before we wrap up here, I think it's so important, the relationship that injectors develop with their reps. I think we're very fortunate, because I talk to so many clinics who say, oh, our rep is terrible. Our Allergan rep, our Galderma rep, and our Revance rep are good, but we work them, right? And I mean, we're talking about staff products, training products, but also how can you make us better? They bring in trainers, work your reps, have it. Listen, can you bring in a trainer to work with me? Never stop. And you've done a really
I
good
tell
job
people that all the
of
time.
building a good relationship with these reps.
I tell people that all the time. Allergy and Galderma Revance, they have so many trainings per quarter at their disposal. Now, you have to be ordering their products. So don't request a training if you order 6 syringes of a product every year. You have to have some buy-in too. So they want to train the accounts that are already doing some where they think they can bring their injectables to the next level.
Yes.
And by bringing in those trainers, you can see different ways to use different products. Also, making sure that you've kind of vetted the trainer they're bringing in. They're always going to kind of give you some options. But if you know somebody that you followed online, you're like, gosh, they're before and after amazing. How do they get that? You can request a certain trainer too. Most of the people on Instagram put who they train for, really using social media as a way to see what kind of style you like. Now, there's some injectors that overtreat people. I wouldn't request that person. The people that are subtle that you're like, man, those people look like they didn't have anything done. Ask for those trainers. And if they can get those trainers there, they will. But really use those resources. Also, don't be afraid to look at different products. Look at, as a business owner or as a manager, what you're getting back on products. There's a lot of different products coming into the market that are less costly. And just because you've never used it doesn't mean you shouldn't try it. So if there's a product you're curious about, reach out to the company, get the rep in, play with it and see. And then a lot of times they can bring a trainer out once you've kind of started to play with it, see if you like the product. So don't be afraid to do that either. I always tell accounts, I'm like, request the training through Galderma, Allergan, because they pay for it.
That's
now,
right.
Not always will you get it. They only get so many.
Right.
But really, if you're a good client to them, they're always going to do their best to get you the trainer you want, to get the training you want. Say you're with Galderma and you only do the filler, you don't do Sculptra. Say, hey, I want to get my hands on Sculptra, but I don't even know how to use it. Use them as a resource.
Yeah. And build relationships with other injectors around the country. Now with LinkedIn, with social media, create a chat group. So people you can bounce ideas off, show before and after pictures. We're fortunate here because we have 9 injectors, but Noreen knows injectors all over. In fact, she just was at a meeting and introduced me to, we're doing some business stuff with one. But when you're at meetings, and go to meetings, go to laser meetings, go to injection meetings, some of them are not going to be good, but some are going to be good.
Right.
Develop a community around you where you guys can help each other learn. So I want to wrap up with it. Noreen and is very unique in her skills, but I think her best skill is her relationship building with the client.
Did you know when a provider completes a Mint Aesthetics clinical course and passes the quiz, they get a custom certificate acknowledging their work? We are huge believers that our employees are our best resource, and training only makes them more valuable. These certificates not only boost their confidence, but can credential your team to clients as well. If you're interested in learning more about the Mint online e-courses, visit us at mintaesthetics.com.
She works 4 days a week, and she will do over $2 million in injectables, which is unbelievable. I wish she'd work 6 days a week. Come on. But find people like Noreen to work with. And obviously, we'd love to have your business, and it's what we do and train. But I'm telling you, I think anybody who has confidence with a needle can become a great injector. It just takes a lot of effort, don't you think?
It takes effort, it takes time, and it takes practice and passion. The other thing I will say, when you're looking at doing some advanced education, really vet where you're going. Really ask those questions, because there's a lot of different training courses, and make sure you're going to get a lot of hands-on injecting with the needle, that you're not going to just be watching. Even though where you're live injecting, it's going to be more expensive, but I'm telling you, you will get so much more out of it. I looked at what I paid out of my own pocket. You got to invest your own money too. Sometimes practices will invest, but if you're not willing to invest some of your own money, do you really want it bad enough? So early on, I invested into a few courses that I won't say their name, but I was like, oh my gosh, that was the biggest waste of $3,000. Really see what you're going to get from each course. The more you get your hand on a needle in front of a trainer, the more you're going to get out of that training. That's so, so, so important. Lots of different people, companies training, really understand how many people do they inject and why are they an expert? Because everybody wants to get in the training space.
Mhm.
And I think here at Mint, we have something, we're a unicorn, because no other training company I know you get as much hands-on than you do a full day with Mint training. So you can do a full day with fillers, or you can do neurotoxins, but you're getting a new patient to do a consultation, assessment, and inject every hour. So with filler, you're usually getting at least 4 to 5 people to inject, which is amazing. And I just talked to Kat about developing a sculpture training, because I have a lot of people reach out for private trainings. And I think sculpture is such an underutilized product that does such amazing results that everybody needs it. So hopefully we'll bring that on.
And we can custom design courses. We might have an advanced injector who just says, I just don't feel comfortable with tear troughs and temples. And we can focus on that as well. And because there's a lot of injectors that I talked to said, well, I feel really good with cheeks and nasal and lips, but I won't do this, this, and this. Well, if you can't do that, and that's going to be the best result for your client,
you're going to lose them.
You should want them. Yeah. They're going to lose to somebody who will.
That's right.
So listen, we've got a great day ahead of us. I mean, I love, I've been to a million trainings and we do them here, but when you work with an amazing person who, the biggest thing to me is they love what they do, they get excited. You guys are really going to enjoy what's going to go on today with Noreen, but we look so forward to working with you all. If there's anything we can do for you, let us know. I really hope you enjoy this day of Injectables. It's going to be great.
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of the Making of a Multi-Million-Dollar Med Spa podcast. I'm Kat Taranto, and it's been an absolute joy to be part of your journey. Until next time, let your passion lead the way. See you soon.